Okay, hello everyone. Welcome back. We're excited to keep the afternoon rolling with our next Founders Day session, From Bots to Brains, Radiology's Guide to AI Agents and Automation. A quick reminder, every session today is being recorded, and you can find those recordings afterwards at rbma.org/57 years. If you haven't yet had a chance to contribute to our Founders Day giving campaign, you can visit rbma.org/give. Your support means a lot, and we truly appreciate it. This next session is brought to you with the support of our sponsor, Infinx. Please use the Q&A function to ask any questions. There will be time at the end of the presentation to address those questions. And joining us now is Stuart Newsome, Vice President of RCM Insights at Infinx. Stuart will be sharing how AI agents and automation are reshaping imaging operations.
All right. Well, thank you so much for that introduction. It's very generous. And I just want to say good afternoon to everyone. Thanks for making the time to join this session, especially during a virtual event like this, where it's all too easy to check out, check email, or just check the fridge between speakers. So I really appreciate you being here. My goal over the next 30 minutes is very simple. Just to make this worth your time. I'm not going to throw a bunch of theory or tech jargon at you. But instead, I want to talk about a shift that's quietly underway in radiology and imaging operations. And it's one that's not about ripping and replacing systems, but it's about how we think about work itself. Now, I know this is one of many sessions today. Some of you may have probably already heard from analysts, vendors, and even consultants about how AI is transforming healthcare. And that's a story that we've been sold before, often accompanied by lofty predictions and even underwhelming results. But what we're seeing now and what this session will unpack is something very different. It's not about building sentient machines. It's not about replacing jobs. It's about finally having tools that can understand what needs to happen next and just do it across tasks that used to burn time, drain energy, and frustrate staff. So think less supercomputer and more super reliable coworker. These aren't bots, they're agents, and they're being deployed right now in real organizations to quietly and intelligently move work forward. So that's what it's all about. So I'll walk you through what that means with real examples, starting with the problems that most of us are still facing day to day, and I'll also move from challenge to use case. And by the end of this, you'll have a clear, no spin understanding of where this fits and how to think about it in your own environment. So let's start where most of us are still stuck, manual processes, because before we talk about agents, we need to talk about the grind that they're stepping into. So with that said, let's move to the next slide here. For all the buzz and chatter about artificial intelligence, it's worth asking, why are we even talking about this right now in radiology? And it's been all the buzz for the last couple of years with everyone mentioning AI, everyone mentioning automation. It's been around for a long time. But I want to start with a hard truth, and that is that more than 70% of imaging centers are still stuck in manual processes for referral intake, prior authorizations, and even scheduling. So these are core revenue driving functions, and they're still being handled in ways that depend on human memory, some tribal knowledge, paper-based workflows, and even phone calls. Everybody likes calling a payer. It's not just inefficiency, it's unsustainable. And meanwhile, we've seen automation tools like RPA try to fill that gap. That's been the historic resonating technology that has been the quick fix for that. And they've done a decent job with repetitive rules-based tasks, but those tools start to fall apart when nuance enters the picture. So when you need logic that adapts to context, or situations where rules don't apply cleanly, or something changes midstream, RPA just doesn't flex very well to that. And that's a problem in healthcare, where context is everything. So what are we left with? We're still asking front office staff, schedulers, and coordinators to carry the weight of these broken workflows. They're working with fragile tools and no room to breathe. Morale drops, errors increase, patients wait longer, and we all know denials go up. And leadership is stuck watching revenue leak from the seams. So this is why AI agents matter now, because we're not just talking about automation for the sake of novelty. We're talking about digital coworkers that are adaptive, context aware, and then actually take action, not just suggest, not just alert, but act. So this moment matters because we finally have the ability to offload the junk work that clogs up our operations without compromising control or even quality. So AI agents can do the heavy lifting behind the scenes, so your people can focus on patients and clinical decisions. And that's not a futuristic vision. It's actually happening right now. So next, let's take a second to define this thing. What exactly is an AI agent? It's a term that gets thrown around a lot. And depending on who you're talking to, it can mean wildly different things. So here's a clear way to think about it. First, an AI agents are autonomous. They don't wait around for a human to tell them to do something. So once deployed, they operate in the background, constantly monitoring for triggers, signals, even events, always ready to respond. Second, they're context aware. Now, that's a big leap forward. Traditional bots or automations tend to be task specific. They execute when prompted, but AI agents are different. They're aware of the broader workflow. They can make decisions based on what's happening upstream and even downstream. They understand the journey of a referral or the timing sensitivity of a prior auth. They're not just working in isolation, they're working as part of a team in the full context of your operation. And then third, they're action oriented. They don't just analyze and suggest, they trigger real outcomes. And that might be populating a record, launching an eligibility check, maybe even initiating a prior auth, or updating a risk. They don't just sit around being smart, they do things. And this is what separates an AI agent from a bot. A bot is like a macro. It's very helpful, but it's limited. And an AI agent is more like a coworker who understands the whole situation. It sees what needs to be done and then jumps in to handle it. So when we say AI agent, just think digital teammate, someone or something that's got initiative, intelligence, and the ability to move forward or move the work forward. So now let's open up the hood and let's look at what makes this agent tick. Now, if you want to compare them to human teammates like I did earlier, which we should, then here's the best analogy. AI agents have a brain, eyes, and hands. Now, you could put all kind of body parts associated with AI agents, but these are the three that I really wanted to pick at first. So the brain is where the intelligence lives, obviously. It's the model that's been trained on your workflows, your policies, your clinical terminology, your business rules. It's sophisticated enough to understand in that training that, hey, I'm in an imaging center. I'm working in a radiology practice. It's what allows the agent to reason, make decisions, adapt, and learn over time. And this is where Gen AI and then machine learning models show up. It's not just rules, it's real understanding. And the best part, it's real understanding at scale. Then you have the eyes. So that's how the agent perceives what's going on. It might be looking at incoming documents, referral forms, HL7 messages, any activity in your risk system or PAC system, maybe even audit logs. The eyes are what make the agent aware of the current state. This is how it reads, sees, or even hears what's happening across systems. And then finally, there's the hands. And this is what allows the agent to act, whether that's entering data into a risk, launching an API call, updating a prior auth system, or routing a task to a human. The hands are what give the agent execution power. So when you combine these three elements, the brain, the eyes, the hands, you get an agent that can think, perceive, and act. It's not just watching, it's not just suggesting, it's actually participating. And this is what allows AI agents to handle complexity. They can adapt to changing inputs, make informed decisions, and even still take action, even when situations aren't perfectly defined. And in radiology, that really matters because nothing about patient access, intake, or authorization is ever perfectly defined, as we all know. If chaos is going to happen, it will definitely happen. Every case has its nuance, and that's where the agents shine. So let's ground this conversation in something that's real. AI agents are definitely a hot topic. I've already mentioned that. That's pretty much a well-established statement. And rightfully so, but they're only meaningful when we can see how they actually apply in the real world. So one of the most compelling early examples comes from Hackensack Meridian Health, which is a large integrated health system based in New Jersey, and one of the early adopters of the multi-agent AI strategies in healthcare operations. Now, to be clear, what Hackensack is doing isn't a retrospective case study, it's an active implementation. And that's part of what makes it so relevant right here. They're not dipping their toes in AI waters. They're diving in with an ambitious plan to orchestrate staffing, patient intake, scheduling workflows, using a network, if you will, of specialized AI agents along with human specialists that each play a distinct role in the care operation process. So let's walk through what that actually looks like. So one of the pain points Hackensack faced, like most imaging centers and health systems, was the high volume of manual time-consuming processes involved in appointment scheduling. So even with a robust EHR and scheduling platform, the process of converting a referral into a booked appointment involved a lot of hands. And I think everyone can resonate with this. They have reading forms, verifying eligibility, checking provider schedules, determining the urgency, and doing all of that while juggling resources availability and patient preferences. Now enter the AI agent model. Hackensack is piloting a multi-agent orchestration approach where different AI agents are assigned specific tasks with specific roles in mind in the intake and scheduling pipeline. So one agent might specialize in understanding the content of an inbound document, extracting the needed clinical and demographic information. Then another one is turned for eligibility verification and coverage checks, tapping into payer data in real time. And another agent is responsible for dynamically scheduling the appointment by weighing factors like modality availability, provider schedules, patient urgency, and even time of day trends. These agents don't just passively wait for a human to trigger them, they're designated to act autonomously and collaboratively. So they work together, also hand in hand with human specialists, as we'll get to here in a few seconds. So for instance, when a fax referral comes in, the categorization agent classifies it. There's an extraction agent that parses and understands the clinical ask. The scheduling agent then steps in to match it to available slots, all within a matter of minutes. And while Hackensack hasn't yet published any hard outcome data, the goal that they have is crystal clear. They obviously want to reduce appointment lead times. They want to free up staff to focus on escalations and patient communication. And they want to increase throughput without adding headcount. And lastly, I'd say they want to prevent denials. So certainly these goals may resonate with you as well. And actually in interviews, the Hackensack leadership has emphasized that this is not about replacing people. It's all about removing the bottlenecks that force skilled schedulers and even care coordinators to spend their days buried in administrative sludge. This initiative is a perfect reflection of the AI agent philosophy to deploy focused digital coworkers that do one thing well, operate with autonomy, and integrate seamlessly into the broader workflows, especially in working together to accomplish the mission. And the broader takeaway here is critical. You don't need to be Hackensack to benefit from this. The concept scales. So whether you're a regional imaging center or a multi-site radiology group, these are manual processes and tasks in your operation, I'm sure that are ripe for agent-driven automation. So Hackensack is showing us that this is no longer science fiction. It's not hypothetical. It's a directional signal of where operations are heading, and it's being built right now by some of the most respected institutions in healthcare. So here's the situation that we're still dealing with, though. And I know many of you will nod your heads at this. Referrals are still coming in via fax. And it was pointed out with me as I was on the phone with a client one time that, hey, at least we're paperless. It's coming in digitally via fax service, maybe write fax or eFax. Obviously, sometimes it still comes in as a paper fax, but then sometimes it comes in as an email attachment as a PDF. Sometimes it's even brought in or old-fashioned fax and it's scanned by the referring provider's front desk. This is 2025, and yet our operational workflows are often held hostage by technology that peaked during the Clinton administration. Now, the big mistake a lot of organizations make when they hear AI can handle faxes is thinking it's just about reading words off of a page. But this isn't a glorified scanner with a highlighter. It's a coordinated team of specialized AI agents, and yes, I said team, that work in sequence, and each one is doing a job that's used to require multiple humans. That's the game changer. Let me walk you through it for a second. So first you have an AI agent that can be called the categorization agent. Think of it like an air traffic controller in your digital documents. As soon as a document lands, whether it's a faxed form, a scanned image, or a PDF from an email, this agent identifies exactly what it is. Is it an order for an MRI? Is it a referral for a CT scan? Is it a medical record from another provider? Maybe a form with a handwritten note at the bottom? The categorization agent sorts these documents by type and routes them appropriately to the next agent in line. No guessing, no routing errors, and definitely no stacks of faxes piling up on a desk. Then comes the extraction agent, and this is where things really get impressive. This agent uses a combination of generative AI and machine learning to understand the clinical context of the document. It's not just pulling data off a form, it's actually interpreting what's there. That means it can distinguish between structured fields like patient name and date of birth, and also unstructured, the messy stuff like rule out tumor, possible migraine that's scrawled somewhere in the margin. It can read clinical shorthand. It can recognize acronyms, decode abbreviations, and understand the difference between an ordering provider and a referring provider, even when they're mislabeled. And unlike a template-based system, this agent learns continuously. So even if the document comes from a new physician group with a completely different layout, it figures it out. It gets smarter the more it works. And then finally, we've got the data entry agent. And this one picks up where the others all leave off. It doesn't just hand off the information to a human scheduler, it logs into your RIS or your scheduling system and actually posts the data, all by the latest technology and integration methods that can be set up. So we're talking about this in ways in where it actually will create the patient record or even match it to an existing one. It will enter the order. It will attach to clinical documentation. It'll even update scheduling fields if needed. And the best part, once it's done, the baton is passed to the next wave of AI agents, like eligibility verification, prior authorization, scheduling optimization. It's all handled downstream. So there's no manual handoffs and no duplicative effort. So what used to take a person 10 to 15 minutes, probably longer for some of you per order, assuming no errors or rework was needed, is now handled end to end without a single manual click. And your staff, well, they get to work at the top of their game, focusing on patient experience, exception handling, and escalations that actually need human judgment. So this isn't about replacing humans. It's about finally freeing them from the relentless administrative sludge that's been clogging up our imaging workflows for decades. So yes, faxes are still coming in, but now we've got agents that meet the reality head on and turn it into clean, structured data and set the rest of the workflow in motion automatically. So let's talk about what this actually looks like in a working environment. Because when people hear AI agent, the fear that often surfaces is, am I going to be replaced? Or maybe it's leadership that's asking, are we automating people out of jobs? Now the answer is obviously no, and I'm sure I'm not the first person that has said this. But in fact, the entire point of AI agents is to amplify people, not replace them. The goal here is augmentation, not elimination. So think of an AI agent as the coworkers who handle the stuff you wish you didn't have to do, the repetitive, mind-numbing, why am I still doing this manually kind of work. They're built to operate behind the scenes, taking care of the high volume, low value tasks that suck the energy out of your team's day. For example, scheduling follow-up imaging for patients who had to cancel, or maybe calling the payer to verify benefits. Perhaps clicking through 7 different screens to confirm whether a prior auth is still valid. These are necessary tasks for sure, but they don't require deep human expertise or thinking, and yet they eat up hours of your staff time. Now, with agents in play, your human staff doesn't even see those workflows anymore. The agents handle it automatically, reliably, and around the clock. So that frees up your team to focus on what they're actually trained to do, the stuff that requires nuance, perhaps some empathy, and even some critical thinking. So let's say an auth gets flagged as partially denied. That's when your staff steps in. not to rekey a form, not to call for a faxed update, but to work through the exception, apply the clinical knowledge, and move the case forward. And here's the key point. Governance is actually baked into this. AI agents don't run wild. They're deployed with clear boundaries, business logic, escalation paths, and guardrails to make sure that they stay in their lane. You're not giving up control, you're gaining consistency. And think of it like this. If your team is the orchestra and the AI agents are the percussion section that's keeping up with the tempo, they're not playing solos or improvising jazz riffs. They're following the score, they're hitting their marks, and they're keeping everything moving in rhythm. And when the situation calls for finesse, emotion, or a split-second judgment call, that's where your people shine. So this model is already in play in some of the most forward-thinking imaging organizations. And not only are agents reducing burnout and staff turnover, but they're giving leaders clear visibility into processes with fewer errors to fix and much faster path to cash. So if you're wondering how AI agents fit in your team, the answer is as a multiplier. They give your people the breathing room to operate at a high performance level. And when you combine humans and agents in the right place, the result is faster throughput, better experience, and stronger outcomes. By now, you might be thinking, well, this sounds great in theory, but where do we even start? What does this look like in practice? So let's ground this out into reality. I think I'm one slide ahead. Apologize for that. So let's ground this out in some reality. So we're not talking about some massive year-long rip and replace digital transformation project. This is about smarter surgical entry points, places where AI agents can make an immediate impact, especially in imaging. And two of the highest yield starting points are referral intake and prior authorization. These are areas where the pain is well known and where the workflows are just screaming for automation. So let's start at the very top of the funnel with referral intake. This is still, for most organizations, a heavily manual and error-prone process. You get a referral, often via fax or an email PDF, or sometimes it's handed off sometimes as a printed document. And then what? Well, someone has to read it, interpret it, key it into your risks, and maybe hunt down insurance information and hope it's accurate enough to start scheduling. But when you apply AI agents to this process, everything changes. Remember that categorization agent that we talked about earlier? Well, this is your first touch point, and it sees the document come in and knows this is a referral, and it routes it down to the right pipeline. The next is the extraction agent kicks in, and it parses the clinical details, not just name or date of birth, but the relevant history, the referring provider notes, the reason for the exam, or even handwritten comments in the margins. Now, here's where it gets interesting. That information doesn't just sit in a silo. It feeds directly into the AI logic used for downstream processes, like verifying eligibility. It could even determine medical necessity and even making a first pass decision on whether this case will require a prior auth or not. The whole process becomes a relay race between digital coworkers. They never drop the baton, and there are no bottlenecks. So you go from paper fax to ready to schedule, fully prepared referral packet, sometimes in under 5 minutes and without a single human touch. So now let's talk about prior authorization. We'll all know this is one of the most painful choke points in radiology. Now, it slows down scheduling, frustrates patients, and even burns out staff. But here's the thing. Most of what's required to kick off and off doesn't actually require human judgment. It just requires coordination, the right data, the right format, and the right payer portal. So this is where AI agents shine. And as soon as that referral is captured and clinically interpreted, an agent can evaluate, does this exam require an auth? And if so, for which payer? And do we have all the clinical criteria that's ready for this? And if the answer is yes, then it moves instantly. It initiates the request. It uploads the documentation. It tracks the response. It doesn't stop at submitted. It keeps checking for status updates. It escalates when it's needed and alerts a human only if something goes wrong or needs intervention. So you're not just reducing manual effort, you're reducing delay. You're reducing denials by submitting clean, complete documentation on the first try. And most importantly, you're restoring velocity to your front end operations. So your schedulers aren't constantly playing catch up or calling back patients to reschedule. So these are just two use cases, but they represent a whole new way of thinking where AI agents become embedded in your day-to-day workflows, not just as an extra tool and not as a side project, but as a core member of the team operating silently in the background to remove friction and unlock speed. So you don't have to overhaul your department to start seeing the benefits. You just have to start where the need is the biggest and let the agents do what's best. So let me pull this all together before I open it up for questions. But I just want you to start thinking with, you know, what is the reality that you're living? So lots of manual steps, limited wins from the first gen RPA, and rising demands from payers and patients with finite staff to handle it all. We then reframed automation around agents, autonomous, context-aware, action-oriented coworkers that move work forward instead of your existing systems. We look at the simple loop where you see, decide, do, and check, and where it most naturally fits, naturally with intake, readiness, and auth initiation, and even follow-up. And we keep the lens on the human side, better together instead of human versus machines. Now, if this resonates and you want to dig a little deeper, here are some easy next steps that I can recommend for you. I know this was a short session, didn't have a whole lot to cover. There's so much more to cover. I could talk hours about this, but you can find some more information on the Infinix website at infinix.com. We have a lot of short explainers and use cases out there, examples that you can share with your team and even read yourself. I also encourage you to subscribe to our podcast. And yes, we have a podcast called Revenue Cycle Optimize. And we keep the episodes very practical and short, but they're focused on real radiology operations, as well as some other specialties, anything involving RCM. And also invite you to join our weekly webinars called Office Hours. They're candid, use case driven. We have guests come on all the time with subject matter experts in all fields. And it's a good way to hear how peers are approaching the same problems. And of course, you can reach out to me directly. Sometimes a 20-minute conversation mapping your exact intake or off flow is the most valuable next step. So I'd be more than happy to talk to you. It's one of my favorite things is talking to people about the issues they're having with anything RCM. So, all right, I just want to hear what's on your mind. Where do you feel the most friction today? And where might an extra pair of hands, even though they're digital ones, make the earliest difference for you? So now let's open up for questions. Though I don't see any in here. Let's see. Here's one question here. What about for admin duties? Yes, that's actually a very excellent question. It can definitely apply. What I just gave you was some examples of what we've seen and heard from clients, customers, whether we're hearing that from trade shows, whether we're having phone calls with them, whether they're calling in for us, asking for solutions that we may have for this. But definitely, agents can be applied to any administrative task because we all know that those have mundane, repetitive task as well. So anything that you think that is a stopgap for you, an obstacle for you, that's actually getting in the way from performing at a much faster, more efficient way can be utilized through an AI agent. And there's many examples. The main thing is it's driven by two factors. There's actually Gen AI, and then there's also machine learning models. And those are very important because just like humans, agents have to learn. So they learn through those machine learning models, and then they're using high-powered, efficient technology with the Gen AI models to actually replicate those tasks at a much faster rate. So they're doing the same things humans are, but they're doing them faster and they're doing them 24/7. So the next question is, what about tracking volumes by day and time and other quantification analytics? Oh yeah, that's really a good question. So yeah, it can actually pull together the data that you may need. I know that analytics is also a pain point, especially depending upon what systems you're looking at and involving. And certainly that's a use case where AI can take that information and not only compile it like a calculator or like a computer can, but it can then reason and give some insights. It can even dig down, even sometimes if you will, like for cases for denial. If you know, a typical denial report says telling you there's a denial, but it can go further and probably dig into what the root cause for that denial was. So it's the main part there is all about integration and how it's retrieving that data, but it definitely can be trained to analyze that data and give that feedback to you. That's a great question, though.
We also have a question in the chat, Stuart. How do the agents make up decisions? I'm sorry, how do the agents make decisions for AR follow-up?
Oh yeah, that's a great question as well. So with AR follow-up, I'm assuming is it prior authorization follow-up or AR follow-up? So I know that I can tell you that again, with these machine learning models, it understands the policies, it understands where that information lives, it understands the payer, so it's going to identify, hey, what payer are we talking about going to? So if you're looking for, say, status, then it leverages, say, an API or an HL7 interface that we may already have, with a payer portal. And if that doesn't exist, then it may deploy an RPA. So it's not that the agent is a new technology that's replacing all that older technology, but it will figure out, okay, where am I going? This payer is has APIs that we can utilize because they just don't like bots. And some payer sites and portals are not kind to bots. They will recognize it and they'll shut it down. Others, they don't really care. But the preferred method is HL7 or APIs. But the agent is actually going to figure out this is a payer, this is what they like to do when we're trying to check on the status, and it'll get that status back. And I hope that answered the question.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much, Stuart, for your presentation today and for giving us such a sharp look at how AI agents are changing the game. As we close this session, I'm excited to share that our Founders Day donations have reached $10,713. Thank you all for giving so generously and making such a difference today. And happening now, 3 p.m., we'll dive into the 2025 ACR RBMA Workforce Survey with Dominic Paris from the American College of Radiology. I put the link in the chat so you can just join directly from there. This session will unpack the latest data and trends shaping radiology today. Thank you all so much for joining us today, and thank you again, Stuart, for such an informative session.
Yes, again, thanks for everyone for sticking around and listening to me and having me here. It was my pleasure.
Have a great day, everyone. Thanks again.
All right, thank you.